Let's go over to the trading floor in Chicago and find out what's going on among the traders there. And we have Tim Evans standing by. Tim is with Longleaf Trading. And Tim, thanks so much for joining us here today as we look at all these numbers that are being tossed around regarding our weekly export inspections and maybe some pre-report positioning for the report coming out on Thursday. What are traders talking about on the floor today?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Marlin. I think we've got a couple of themes that are kind of floating around the trading world today in the ags. They're definitely, I think we're seeing a positive tilt to the market in anticipation of Thursday's number. Given the export inspections number, we're a lot of talk about continued strong demand out of China. And there's also some weather, some talk on weather. There's some expected rain in northern Brazil that, are giving the bulls something to work with here this morning to start. So I think the combination of those three are, have us here in the positive to start the week.
Okay, let's take a look at the futures trade here on the corn and soybeans and the wheat as well. Let's go to the corn first. We started out higher. We were about 2 cents higher. Now the March corn is down 1 1/4 at 3.64 even per bushel. Meanwhile, in the soybean trade, that one started out with double-digit gains, and we've given half of that back. March soybeans down up 6 3/4 at 10.33 3/4, off our high by about 9 cents. Wheat trade in Chicago, we have the March there down 4 3/4 at 4.25 1/2. Kansas City wheat, some folks thought it would be better supported from the dry conditions, but it's giving way today, down 3 1/2 at 4.37 per bushel on that March contract. Do you hear traders talking much about the conditions on the winter wheat areas so far?
Oh, absolutely. That dominated talk here on the trading floor throughout the end of last week, and I work into the weekend, so I continue those discussions over the weekend, and the talk was the same. So, we ultimately think that that's going to provide a decent floor in the market. It's the kind of price action you get going into a major, USDA number sometimes can be a little herky-jerky and arguably irrational at times. But, we think that should provide a good base in that market.
All right, and let's take a quick look at our cotton market before we get into a break here. And Tim will look at March cotton first, where we have it trading down 66 points. Now it's 75.75 per pound. We had been as high as 76.5 cents per pound. So we'll come back in a moment, and Tim will talk about livestock. That's been a choppy market today, too. We'll have more with Tim Evans right after this. Come on back. We're talking right now with Tim Evans of Longleaf Trading. He's positioned at the edge of the trading floor in Chicago, and we're talking about our ag commodity trade today. The grain trade basically has kind of given up from its earlier highs of the day. Soybeans are still higher, but corn and wheat really struggling. Now, if you look at the livestock side, we did get some new midday cutout value updates from USDA, and on the beef side, we were higher by 65 cents this morning at 192.05. Selects are now 29 cents higher this morning at 190.22. This came out at about a time when the cattle market on the live cattle and feeder cattle trade opened up higher and had reversed out, Tim, and gone to the downside by about $0.50 or so in most of the contracts. But then that was about the time when this midday cutout update came out. And then the market's reversed again for the second time today. This is kind of hard to keep track of here, but we have April live cattle. I'm showing 48 higher now at 116.10 on the latest live quotes. So we're about 30 or 40 cents, I guess, from our high of the day. June is up 40 on the feeder cattle side. That thing also had been whipsawed around like on the live cattle. We have March feeders now $0.50 higher again, up 50 cents at 124.08. April also $0.50 higher at 124. So what's your take on this?
I think that really is the technical component of the market is really setting the market up for continued choppy trade over the next coming days. If you remember, we had that gap lower last week, and the market early this morning went and attempted to fill that gap and failed, and we're getting strength and headed back toward that gap. And traditionally in technical analysis, gaps will typically serve as a kind of a sticking point for the market. And a heavy resistance area. So, we think in the short term that will provide some short-term resistance for the market, but, there's some fundamental forces that, should provide a base in the market. So, that should probably yield some choppy trade here over the next few days.
I have to ask you, are you a fan of the lean hog market right now, or are you a believer that it can still go higher?
I am indeed a fan of the lean hog market. I mean, I think the performance of the market obviously speaks for itself. But, looking a little deeper kind of into the market itself, I mean, if you follow the pork belly side of it, I mean, that's really, in my opinion, where a lot of this strength has been coming from. I mean, if you go back and look at values back in August, I mean, we were trading at about 80. We got up to about, 114 in December. And, we've been surging higher in bellies over the last month, at least since that the cold storage report, the last one of those. So, that really seems to be driving the market. I mean, I think the only way this thing really ends up turning over if the export side or the demand side of the market really sours. And, there's really no indication of that to this point. So I like the hog market a lot going forward.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that very much. Tim Evans of Longleaf Trading. He is there at the trading floor in Chicago. A quick peek at that April lean hog contract, if I can, just to update everybody on the rural radio here, just to get the latest quote. April up 63 at 70.88. And Janet, that one is about a $0.50 off its high of the day, but still pretty good.
All right. Thank you very much.